My toxic relationships looked fantastic on surface, in part because my childhood had taught me the importance of branding others. It is a great irony of my journey as an artist. I have no idea how to build my own identity, but could build a multi-million-dollar marketing campaign for everyone else. Why? Because my entire life I was a PR manager for my parents, and that meant any self-image or sense of self was not a part of my paycheck. I got paid to erase me and color them. We had just ended up fighting, and I was triggered. The whole ride I was trying to recall what marked our explosion, or rather his, and I felt a depressing panic enter me because all I could hear in my heart was, "This is a pattern, Hardine." Check out all my music on all platforms. So many times growing up, I got made fun of, hit, and scolded without ever really knowing why. And in perspective, I invented the reasons, which is why healthy relationships have been hard for me to find and carry. When so much of your love life is defined by why you excuse others' irrational hatred of you, someone liking you feels so foreign, you push even them to doubt why. We were going to meet our mutual friends, and I already knew how the night would go. I would crack jokes, and he would compliment me, and everyone would think we were the brightest pair, just to end up taking the quietest ride back home to go to our separate rooms. He would glance at my eating throughout the night, and at least once crack a joke that insinuated I was stupid. And once in private, I had the option to start fighting over that comment, which he would deny making, or let it go. Everything was predictable because I was in a pattern, and I was entering PR relationships. Growing up, I loved going out to meet my parents' friends or family because oddly enough, that is when they became my parent. They would either brag or hug me, two things they never did privately. They would compliment me and encourage me to shine so as to impress the people they wanted to impress. And I loved the recognition and worked hard throughout the years to be even more impressive to their public. Yet as I got older and finding new relationships got harder, I found I had no public of my own. All right, let's heal, let's discuss. So, it's so wild. And it's something that I noticed with Olandria in Love Island. You know, she starts the season saying, I haven't been in a relationship for 5 years. And then like most of her relationship with Taylor was totally in her head. And I felt a little like, I'm not casting stones on her because I think the embarrassment that you go through when you walk away from a lot of toxic relationships is the realization that a lot of it was your imagination, that the details that you put into the relationship that made you think it was so romantic was really you. Like you were buying the special gifts. You were remembering the favorite orders. You were the one making a lot because you like you in love. But if you love people that hate you, the crash out is horrible. Because it's like realizing you've been a fool the whole time and you can't defend foolery. You're like totally screwed. Like you're telling this person, how could you have never told me you loved me after I did all this stuff? How come you never said I love you? And it's like, I didn't say it. I didn't feel it. You did that. And that was the biggest manipulation tactic my father had. He had this way, again, charm without harm cannot be spelled. He had this way of making a little look like a lot and everyone giving the most to him. And that was particularly true whenever he would introduce me to friends or family. I remember one time my aunt was like, he really hugs you a lot. He never does that with others. And I'm a hugger. I love physical touch. It's been my Achilles heel in terms of overstaying in toxic relationships because I grew up in a family that for being Latino, there was no hugging, there was no complimenting, a lot of fighting, a lot of yelling, a lot of criticizing every day. So my personality, my nature is to be very affirmational, is to be very huggy and physically touchy. So when I found relationships that even if they weren't emotionally stable or mentally healthy, but they gave me that element that I love, that they fed me in my love language, I always overstayed out of a genuine fear I wouldn't be hugged again. Out of a genuine fear, no one would hold my hand again. And it sounds simple and stupid, but it was this kind of like, I'm going to go back into my lonely cage, and I don't want that. The problem is I wasn't exactly not in a lonely cage if I didn't have emotional and mental health. And I think what a lot of my relationships looking back, like people thought I was so happy and I was doing so well. And it's because I was raised in PR relationships. I was raised when I went out and my mother's friends loved me. She loved me. She was so happy that they were happy with me. If they said I was smart, to her, I was an absolute genius. If they said I was doing well, to her, I was conquering the world. And then, privately, it was that twist of like, you're stupid, you're fat, you overeat, you don't know how to clean, you're always so sensitive, you don't know how to take jokes. And then we would go back in public and, oh yeah, my daughter's the funniest person. And I didn't realize it until like my last few relationships, because it's almost like I steamed out. I couldn't last longer in BS, but yet I hadn't fully realized that I was still looking and acting and enabling BS relationships. So it's like instead of giving years, I gave a few months. And then eventually it was like a few weeks. And then it was eventually nothing. And it's only in this solitude that I'm like, I don't really have my own public. Part of why everyone thought I was happy is that growing up with narcissistic parents, I was taught to do the song and dance, that love is performative. And if you give a good performance to the people that they want to love them, they will love you. And that night, it sounds like a really basic episode, but it was really a basic night. And I think that's one of the biggest triggers for me in knowing I'm not in a good relationship and I want to leave. And it's that basicness. It's that boring. It's that predictability that's not even comfortable. Because that was the thing. I wasn't comfortable. I wasn't happy, yet I knew everything that was going to happen. And obviously it ended, but it's only in perspective that I see a lot of my relationships. I approach them, yes, with a very servile kind of, don't love me, I don't love you, I love to use you kind of way. That their response to me. But I approach them like a marketing campaign. And that's because when you are raised by narcissists, they only see everything according to images. They just want to look good. And if you look good and people attribute you looking good to them, they look better. But again, when you have narcissistic parents, the failures start to crack as you get older. Because if you don't stay infantile and servile, they are going to beat you until you do. And that makes going out in public with them tricky, because then those occasional jokes of what would they do without me start to become more frequent. And the thing about my mother was, I don't think she realized people judged her. Because when I look back on my mother was always giving parenting advice, to the point that I was laughing with one of my friends. I almost forgot all of her friends had children, and all their children went on to be very successful, have successful careers, get married, have kids. I'm the only one who's like doing a podcast about bad dating. And my mother still goes out of her way to tell everybody how to raise a great kid when hers is not doing that well, or at least socially would be considered not doing that well. And my father was tricky because my father stopped talking about his kids and started talking about his grandkids, and just this, oh my God, but like, oh my God, everybody loves me. I'm doing so great. I'm doing so great. But my father spent a lot of time either trying to find ways to cheat on his partners with other men or other women, or being really alone. Like he was either trying to find a secret life to live out that rush, that addict's rush of I'm doing illegal and I'm being illicit and I'm being dangerous, or devastatingly alone with no one talking to him, no one calling him. And there was something about that I understood, because I got a rush over how my partners got complimented for me being by their side. And then when I didn't have a partner or they weren't by my side, it was almost like I was dead. I was a popsicle. I was just in the freezer until they tried to come suck me off again. But that worries me, and that's what I'm really trying to change. I need my own public, which is why I started this podcast. So check out Jardín on all music platforms.